in a nutshell is what the presentation will cover. As I've mentioned, on some of these aspects, I will hand to my colleagues to speak to these items in a bit more detail. Chair, just in terms of the overview, that I'd like to highlight a few points. And I think the one message is that we have seen, particularly in the last 12 months, I think members have also mentioned it, there's been a cycle of continual improvement. There's been progress on certain matters, which is positive in terms of the recovery and rebuild of PRASA. We by no means are saying the job is done. It is far from done, but there is positive steps in the right direction in terms of turning this entity around. One of the key things, honourable members, as the Minister has indicated, the performance of PRASA over the last few years have been atrocious. It's been dismal. The performance in 2021, in terms of achieving our targets, PRASA was sitting at 19%. In terms of achieving the targets that were set. The year that has just passed, that's ended now in March 2023, the performance have improved significantly, and we are sitting at 59% in terms of achieving our targets. That is an increase from the previous year of 40% on the 19% to take us to just shy of 60%. It is an upward trajectory. It's not where we want we want to see an improvement going forward. The team is certainly committed to exceed on that and improve on that going forward. But that was only done through particular focus, commitment, and as I've mentioned, a focus on making sure these targets are achieved. We've made it very clear as the management team the urgency that is required, and to implement a 24/7 approach to bring back the rail service. The targets that we have achieved in terms of this 59%, it relates to the corridor recovery, the corridors we have recovered, the number of stations that we have brought back, firstly in terms of basic functionality and some where there are improvement. It also includes making sure we've got the target in terms of the number of train sets being available that we require to run the service, that those targets were met. We also had targets related to the general overhaul program. That's the heavy maintenance of our existing fleet, the yellow and grey trains. That contract kicked off last year, and we met the targets that were set in terms of the general overhaul program. We met targets in relation to our safety and security in terms of occurrences and incidents, where we saw a significant reduction in terms of those targets that were set. And then also importantly, the deployment of the new trains, the EMUs, the blue trains on a number of corridors. During the past financial year, we've deployed on 8 of the corridors we've recovered the EMU trains. So that was another target that we also met going forward. And we've got the detail in terms of all of that, as well as those targets that we did not meet. We've got the information, and we can provide that breakdown in terms of that information. As the Minister has indicated, this year going forward now, we are still busy with recovering additional corridors. We've heard the board member indicate that we are now busy with the testing of the Lerala to Germiston service in Gauteng. We've got the go-ahead from the railway safety regulator to start testing, and we are hopeful that by the end of this month, early June, we can launch the commercial service from Tembisa. So that's one that is quite advanced. You may also have seen, honourable members, we've also done some interim or pilot interventions to address the issues around platform gaps that we see at some of our stations. So we've got the more medium to longer term program in terms of addressing the gap with the platforms. Here we've looked at the short, medium term interventions that we are looking at. Particularly on that line, we've got significant gap between the train and the platform that we need to address. And I'm happy that the team, we're taking the initiative to look at some of these interventions. It's one of the critical things that the railway safety regulator has also raised. But the point I wanted to make, in addition to the corridors that we are targeting this year, and there's a number of them that we are working on, we are also looking at those corridors that we have already recovered. It's about how do you start optimizing the service on that corridor. As the Minister has indicated, it's about bringing back our signaling system. As part of this period of theft and vandalism, that's one of the infrastructure that has been badly impacted. Many of our corridors we are operating under manual authorization, and because of that we are able only to run a limited service at this point in time. We get to a point where we can start running high frequency services on these corridors, particularly in the peak periods. And the signaling system is one of the critical interventions that we are prioritizing this year in terms of optimizing those existing corridors, but then also bringing back some of the other corridors that we are rebuilding. The War Room has played a critical role in terms of this accelerated recovery program. That War Room at PRASA, with the regional teams all linked into the War Room from the various regions, has been instrumental in terms of coordination, integration, also learning lessons from between the various regions in terms of how do we recover, how do we deal with the approvals from the RSR, and it's assisted with the acceleration of the recovery program. There are daily meetings happening in the War Room, whether it's with contractors, our service providers, whether it's the regional teams that meet on a weekly basis to report on progress with the executive team. It's a fully functioning War Room, and it assisted greatly in terms of the coordination and the accelerated recovery. One of the major achievements we have done this year, honourable members, for the first time at PRASA, that the capital budget, the allocation, has been spent. It has been one of the key challenges we have faced over the number of years where we've not been able to execute our capital program and the associated budget. This year, or the year that has just passed, our allocation was at 12.6 billion for the capital program. And as indicated earlier, we not only spent that, we exceeded that by 8%. 13.5 billion is what we have spent in the past financial year on the capital program. We've got the breakdown in subsequent slides on how we've achieved that. And that is critical not only to ensure the recovery, but also the sustainability of the rail system going forward. It's critical that we roll out this in line with the modernization program. What we have also seen in the past few years where there's been underspend on the capital program, we have seen the impact it's had on the rail industry. We have received numerous approaches, numerous correspondence from the industry where SMMEs, small companies, industries are forced to close down because of the non-expenditure of the capital program at PRASA. One example is on the rolling stock, where the maintenance, the geo program, a lot of those companies that were in existence before no longer exist today. So the impact of not spending has got far-reaching consequences, not only for PRASA, but the industry at large. As PRASA, as the SOE, these budgets that are allocated to PRASA, that we give it the highest priority in terms of ensuring we are able to execute effectively. One of the other key achievements within this, within the past financial year, is our ongoing engagement with the railway safety regulator. PRASA is not guaranteed to run trains. We need to demonstrate we can do so safely. And we need to demonstrate to the regulator that we have got the capability, and also we've put the right systems in place and also upgraded effectively. And through our ongoing engagement with the RSR, we have been issued a 29-month permit. Previously we had a 6-month permit, and before that going month-by-month basis. So it's a significant, I think, vote of confidence in terms of getting the 29-month permit. Yes, we actually did apply for a 36-month, 3-year contract. 29 months was issued. There are a few safety regulator, but I think it's important that that relationship and that is one that has seen improvement and its ongoing commitment between ourselves in achieving some of those requirements that we need to do. The issue, and I won't touch on that in much detail, but around security, around safety, we've seen a significant reduction in terms of the number of occurrences, but we also acknowledge that we are running a lot fewer trains than what we ran in the past. So the numbers would therefore also correspond to that. So we do acknowledge that, but we have seen in terms of the targets that have been set, we have come in well below that in terms of the number of occurrences. For us to ensure that we can successfully execute also the capital program, which I've touched on earlier, in this period we've also looked at enhancing our capacity, our skills within PRASA. There's been some key filling of critical vacancies at a technical, at a supply chain level, also at finance that deals with our audit cycle and so forth, and the colleagues will touch on a bit of some of those key capacity enhancements. And then also what we have done, a critical award that we have made this year, is the appointment of an EPCM contractor service provider that will bring in significant skills around engineering, procurement, as well as construction management. And that's to beef up some of the technical skills in particular that we lack in terms of implementing this capital program. Just as a matter of interest, if you look at the medium-term budget allocation, PRASA is allocated in the region of 40 billion over the next 3 years that we need to execute successfully, and we need to ensure we've got the capacity to do that. That excludes, Honourable Chair and members, the previous year of under expenditure that we've had on the capital program. So there's an additional probably 15 billion in terms of under expenditure over and above the 40 billion. So it's a capital investment going forward over the MTF that we need to be geared up in terms of being able to successfully implement that program. And hence we have taken some of those actions. And then finally on this slide, again, there's been some key appointments at executive level to deal with leadership instability. You would have heard also when I made some of the introductions, there's still a number of positions where we've got people in acting roles that we need to move.
I hope that you are going to clarify the EPCM. What does it mean?
Okay, so EPCM, Honourable Chair, the acronym, it stands for Engineering, Procurement and Construction Management. So within that space, you are bringing in a contractor service provider that brings engineering skills, it brings procurement skills, and also the issue around construction and management. So in all of those areas, we've got this service provider that can plug in the capital program to assist where we have got gaps in rolling out on some of these critical projects within our capital program. That appointment, Honourable Chair, we've done a 5-year appointment of a service provider to assist us through this period. Critical for PRASA on that is to ensure that through that period, you make sure you also do the correct capacity building, skills transfer, to ensure you are capacitated adequately through that. But because of the acceleration and the urgency, we need to get that capacity on board to assist with that program. Chair, are you covered?
Just for now, clarity on that
okay.
acronym thing.
Okay, thank you.
Questions will follow after that.
Thank you.
Fine.
So